The plane hummed steadily as it taxied down the runway at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, the late morning sun of June 12, 2026, glinting off its wings. Inside, passengers settled into their seats, the soft buzz of chatter blending with the drone of engines. It was a routine flight, or so it seemed, with no hint of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Margaret Langley, an elderly woman with snow-white hair swept into an elegant chignon, stepped aboard with quiet grace. Her tailored navy coat and simple gold brooch spoke of refined simplicity, her steady gaze carrying a depth that went unnoticed by most. She moved down the aisle toward business class, offering polite smiles to those who met her eyes, her presence calm but commanding, like a still lake hiding powerful currents below. Margaret settled into seat 8A, placing her leather satchel on the armrest and reaching for the seat belt. Her fingers, once nimble, now trembled slightly, the buckle slipping from her grasp. She tried again, her movements patient but less certain, time having softened her dexterity but not her resolve. Glancing up, she spotted a flight attendant, Clara Wentworth, in the first-class section. Clara was striking tall, with sleek auburn hair in a flawless bun, her uniform pristine. She laughed brightly at a passenger's quip, her charm reserved for those she deemed worthy. Margaret hesitated, then called softly, "Excuse me, dear, could you help me with this?" Clara's head turned, her smile faltering as her eyes landed on Margaret. A flicker of impatience crossed her face, quickly masked by a practiced grin. "It's just a seat belt, ma'am," she said, her tone syrupy but edged with condescension. "Pull it across and click it." Margaret nodded calmly, her expression unruffled, though she'd met this kind of subtle dismissal before people who saw age as frailty, politeness as weakness. "I tried, dear," she replied gently, gesturing to her unsteady hands. "It's a bit tricky today." Clara's jaw tightened, her gaze darting to ensure no one important was watching. "I'll be back," she muttered, already turning away to resume her conversation with a suited businessman, dismissing Margaret as if she were invisible. Nearby, Daniel Carter, a young man in his late 20s seated next to Margaret, watched the exchange closely. Dressed casually in a gray hoodie, his sharp eyes caught every nuance of Clara's arrogance. Without a word, he leaned over, his voice low and kind. "Let me help." With a quick, gentle motion, he fastened Margaret's seat belt. She turned to him, her smile warm with gratitude. "Thank you, young man," she said, her voice carrying a quiet strength that lingered. As the plane climbed into the sky, Clara continued her rounds, her charm dazzling in first class but vanishing when she passed Margaret's row. Her eyes slid over Margaret, deliberately ignoring her, a silent declaration of disdain. Margaret needed to adjust her seat belt again, the buckle twisted awkwardly. She called out softly, "Excuse me, Clara, could you assist me once more?" Clara paused mid-conversation, her smile tightening into a thin line. "Ma'am," she said, her voice low but sharp, "it's just a seat belt. I'm sure you can manage." The words dripped with feigned courtesy, but the insult was clear. Margaret's expression remained serene, though a flicker of sadness passed through her eyes. "Sometimes," she replied softly, "age makes simple things less simple." Clara sighed, her impatience bare, and turned away, resuming her fawning over first-class passengers. Daniel's jaw clenched, his quiet anger growing. He leaned over again, swiftly fixing the buckle. "Thank you again," Margaret said, her voice warm but tinged with resolve. Nearby, passengers began to notice Ellen and Thomas Reed, a couple in their 50s, exchanged whispers. "Did you see that?" Ellen murmured, indignant. "She's treating that woman like she's nothing." Thomas nodded, his face grim. "It's shameful." In the galley, a junior flight attendant, Sophie Grant, watched with unease. Her kind eyes had followed Clara's dismissals, and her conscience urged her to act. She approached Clara cautiously. "Maybe you could help the lady in 8A? She seems to need a little extra attention." Clara's eyes narrowed, her voice icy. "Are you telling me how to do my job, Sophie?" Sophie stood her ground, though her voice wavered. "No, I just thought," Clara cut her off. "Focus on your own work." Sophie retreated, her frustration evident, casting a sympathetic glance toward Margaret. Unseen in first class, Victor Grayson, a sharply dressed man with a commanding presence, observed everything. His eyes tracked Clara's every slight, his anger building with each dismissive gesture. Finally, he'd had enough. Pulling out his phone, he typed a searing message to the airline's top brass, detailing Clara's behavior. He hit send, his face impassive but resolute. In the cockpit, Flight Supervisor James Callahan received the message, his face paling as he read the name. Margaret Langley, founder of the airline, seated in 8A, publicly disrespected by Clara Wentworth. "No one told us," he muttered, stunned. Captain Michael Holt's jaw tightened. "Clara Wentworth?" he asked, his voice hard. James nodded grimly, then activated the intercom. "Clara Wentworth, report to the galley immediately." Clara froze, her confident facade cracking as she walked to the galley, her steps tense. James stood waiting, his expression cold. "Do you know who's in 8A?" he asked, his voice like steel. Clara frowned, confused. "The older woman?" James's eyes blazed. "That's Margaret Langley, the founder of this airline. And Victor Grayson, a major stakeholder, just reported your behavior to corporate." Clara's face drained of color, her breath catching. "I didn't know," she stammered. "No excuses," James snapped. "Fix this. Apologize now." Clara's heart pounded as she approached Margaret, the cabin's eyes boring into her. "Mrs. Langley," she began, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry for earlier." "I didn't mean," Margaret looked up slowly, her gaze piercing yet calm. "Didn't mean what, dear?" she asked, her tone mild but unyielding. Clara faltered. "For not helping you. I was busy." Margaret's eyebrow arched. "Busy catering to others, perhaps. But not too busy to ignore me because you thought I wasn't worth your time." The words landed like a whip, quiet but devastating. Clara's cheeks burned, her excuses crumbling. Daniel leaned forward, his voice sharp. "You're only sorry because you got caught. If she was just an ordinary passenger, you'd have kept ignoring her." Passengers murmured in agreement, their stares heavy with judgment. Clara stood frozen, exposed, her arrogance laid bare. Margaret sighed softly. "An apology born of fear isn't an apology, Ms. Wentworth. Return to your duties." Clara fled to the galley, tears stinging her eyes, her polished image shattered. As the plane landed, security officers boarded, their presence chilling. "Miss Wentworth, come with us," one said. Clara's knees buckled, but she followed, each step heavier than the last. Passing Margaret, she met her calm, unflinching gaze. "People reveal who they are when they think no one's watching," Margaret said softly, her words cutting deep. In a private room, executives Victor Grayson and Charles Donovan awaited, their faces stern. "You're suspended indefinitely," Charles said coldly. "Your actions disgraced this airline." Clara's world collapsed, her arrogance her undoing. Margaret disembarked gracefully, her dignity intact, passengers nodding respectfully. James approached her, apologetic. "Mrs. Langley, we failed you." Margaret's smile was gentle but firm. "It's not just me, James. Every passenger deserves respect." She turned to Sophie, who stood nearby. "You spoke up when it mattered, Sophie. That's rare courage." Victor stepped forward. "With your permission, I'd like to ensure Sophie's recognized." Margaret nodded. "This airline needs more like her." As Clara stepped into the cold Chicago evening, her career in ruins, she realized the depth of her mistake. She'd believed herself above respect, above kindness. But Margaret Langley had shown her otherwise. Real power didn't shout, it commanded quietly, and Clara had learned that lesson too late. What do you think? Did Clara deserve her fate, or was the punishment too harsh? Should Margaret have shown her mercy, or was the lesson necessary? How would you have handled Clara's arrogance? Comment below, like, and subscribe for more stories that spark real talk.